Well, today we're going to go and see our friend, Carol Alderman. We went with her to go and see Sathya Sai Baba in Puttaparthi in India back in 1997. And she's going to talk to us today a little bit about her experiences of Sathya Sai Baba. I tell you, this will be fascinating. She's seen him do miracles, materializations, and all sorts of fascinating things. So here we go. Sathya Sai Baba, talked about by Carol Alderman.
Hello, Craig.
Hello, Carol. It's been a long time.
1997.
Yeah, so it's because we all went to Puttaparthi together.
Yes.
To see Sathya Sai Baba. What was the date?
It was 1997.
It was in October.
Yes.
Just after the monsoon, I remember.
Yeah, it was
wasn't
October.
it? And what were your first impressions of?
Well, I was jolly pleased. I didn't know what the profession of you and Jane and the talents and gifts that you've got. I might have been intimidated.
No.
Oh, you didn't know anything about that? No, we didn't mention it. Did
No,
we?
you didn't.
I don't think we kept it quiet from you. Yeah. I mean, when we first went, we landed in Bangalore, didn't we?
But let's just say about the journey, we were excited, weren't we?
We were.
Yeah, I was really excited.
Yeah, it was.
Because we met Carol 6 weeks before we went.
Yeah, and I remember at the time we weren't earning a lot of money then, and it was quite a big step to be able to actually go abroad.
Financial commitment.
Yeah, it was a big, and it just seemed, the money just seemed to come, didn't it, when it was able to go. And and I had a dream about you, Carol, before. Not directly about you. I had a dream before the trip. I had a dream about a friend of mine with the name Carol, another Carol, and I was going to India, and it was that, and I didn't know anything about that. And then when it came up that we would go to see Sai Baba, it was a Carol, that was taking us to India. So I thought that was a strange thing right away, because for me, Sai Baba always came through dreams before I ever thought about going to India. Have you had any dreams about Sai Baba?
Not a great deal. I've had a couple of very vivid dreams, but that was at a time when I had some problems, which I won't discuss.
Okay, fine. But how did you find Sai Baba? How did he find you, or what, vice versa?
Well, he found me, yes. Halfway through my life, I was at the philosophy school and we were studying the commentaries of Adi Shankara, and I didn't have a clue what it meant. All this about being an invisible veil of Maya over everything and it not being real. I thought, well, of course it's real. I can see the trees, I see the lawn. I don't understand. So we were going to holiday in Quercy, I think, in France, my husband and I. And before we went, we packed all our things. I've got my Sanskrit books to take and some very heavy reading. And Bob went to the library and he brought back a book called Man of Miracles by Howard Murfitt.
Okay, yeah, that's a real
Because Man of
good
Miracles
book.
has brought a lot of people to Sai Baba. And he said, this book, I've got this book from the library for you. It's light reading on holiday. So it was bizarre because he had never bought a book from the library for me before. It was the only book he got for me from the library. So I took it on holiday, and another thing that happened which was bizarre, we crossed the channel and it started raining. The beautiful sunny weather, the lovely summer we'd had, it turned into rain, and that had never happened before. Every year that we go away we have beautiful summer holidays with sunshine. So that was strange. So we went down to this cottage and spent a couple of days looking around in the rain, and then we stayed in. So I started reading the books, and I couldn't put it down. Howard Murfitt's book, Man of Miracles. I was so interested in it, and I was so interested in the teachings in it because they were so easy. Because at the philosophy school, we weren't told what anything meant. We were just told meditate on it, and the meaning will reveal itself. Well, it didn't for me. So Sai Baba was very clear about what things mean.
Yes.
So I thought I must find out more about this. I imagined that he was dead. Everybody was.
Mm.
So the great teachers I was reading about were all dead.
Yeah, I thought the same. I was amazed that he was alive.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I can't find out anything here because there was no address on the book. So we went home, and coincidences started to happen before we even got home. For example, going across the channel, when we took the car across the channel, there were big storms. So our port was closed. So we drove 40 miles up the coast to the next port, and there was about a 2-mile queue, and yet we were directed onto a little queue, and a coach came up behind us, and the coach had to go on the boat. So they put us on the boat too. So we shouldn't have been on that boat, but it was the last boat going back to England that day. And we got back, and it was safe enough. I mean, it was stormy. I went out on deck and almost got blown overboard, so I came back in again. But it was all right. And then we stayed at my mother's house for the night, and then driving back to London. Near where we live, there's a motorway that takes us right into East London, and it has an adverse camber on a U-bend. Mm. And in fact, Bob knew the engineer who built it. It was a mistake. But I always said to him, this is a 40-mile limit on this bend. So as we came up to the bend, I was just about to say 40-mile limit. And then the thought came into my mind, don't tell him, he's just driven you 2,000 miles around France. He can drive. So I kept on talking. And I saw the car go into a slight skid. It just started raining. And it went into a bit of a skid, and then I thought he'd gained control of the wheel, but he didn't, and it went into a zigzag. And we were heading at 60 miles an hour to the motorway wall, which was about as far as that wall is from us. And so I thought, we're going to get killed now. And then I thought, that would be interesting, because I'm going to find out about reincarnation. See whether it happens or not. So, as we were going to crash, the words from the book, Man of Miracles, came into my head. By whatever name you call on me, I will be with you, Sai Baba said. So I said, Sai Baba, I'm a Christian, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy upon me. Got into the crash position, we crashed into the wall, the car was thrown across the motorway, crashed the other side.
God.
It was spinning as it came across again, and crashed in and stopped on the side of the road, back to front. And then Bob said to me, are you hurt, darling? And I said, no. He said, get out of the car. So I got out of the car, and I literally felt as if I'd been held in the palm of God's hand. I felt happy, no whiplash, no concern at all. Perfectly good. Anyway, we were taken home. Just then, 4 men came along, and they went to get out of the car, and they shouted to us, are you all right? We said yes. And then a police car came along, and the police said, we never come this way. He said, you're very lucky, we never come this way, but 10 minutes ago it came into our minds to time the route back from here, using this route back to the police station.
Wow.
So they called the AA for us, got the car towed home, got me taken home. The car was a write-off. The back and the front was smashed in. The windscreen was fine, the windows and doors of the car were fine, so we were able to get out easily. Nothing else was, but the rest of the car was smashed up. And we could smell alcohol in the boot, and that made the police very sympathetic to us. Because we'd lost our duty free.
Oh, you were lucky.
So duty free was a big thing at that time. Going from England to Europe,
yeah.
Everybody wanted their duty free, whether for you or for somebody else. Anyway, when we eventually got the car home and opened the next day or so, nothing was damaged. There was a can of oil, petrol, in the boot, completely screwed up.
Gosh.
But not a drop had come out. And there was only 1 bottle of wine broken, so the rest of it was all right.
That was a miracle.
Nothing was damaged.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So you felt your life was saved there?
Absolutely.
So that must
Sai
have
Baba
made,
saved my life.
so what happened after that? Did you
Well,
want
Then I started telling. I hadn't been in 15 minutes, and after I explained about the accident, I then started to talk about Man of Miracles to my daughter and her friend that was there. And then a couple of days later, the friend phoned up and said, my riding instructor has got a picture of that man in his car. I said, can you find out who that man is? So he came round and told me and bought me books and told me about Sai Baba. And it was then that I learned that Sai Baba was still alive, a living person. And from the moment I knew he was a living person, I had this inner feeling, desperate feeling. I've got to get now. I've got to get there now.
Wow,
I've got to get my suitcase. I've got to go to the airport today and get there immediately. And that persisted until we had eventually booked a trip several weeks later.
So just a few weeks after the car accident?
Yeah,
You got tickets on
we
the
got our tickets for the following Easter.
My goodness.
Bob said I could go at Christmas because it was August 1983 when that happened, and he said, well, you can go at Christmas if you want because you've got holidays from work at Christmas. But when it came to it, I sort of chickened out about going on my own. I thought, I can't go to India, I've never been there, I can't go on my own, I'll be frightened when I get there. So I asked him if he'd come, and he said he'd come the following April, Easter, when he had holidays, and we'd saved up enough money for 2 tickets.
Wow. Wow. So you got to Puttaparthi then? What was your...
No, we got to Ooty.
Ooty?
When we got there in the April 84, we rang up the ashram when we got to Bangalore, and they said, Swami's gone to Ooty. Go to Ooty. And I was trying to say, how? And they put the phone down.
So this is the first time you've been to India?
Yeah.
And we know, what was your impressions when you got to India, what it was like there then?
Well, when we came into Bangalore airport, well, we stopped off actually first at Bombay.
Yep.
And we stayed in a hotel along the road from the Taj, which was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Marble, great halls, and so inexpensive for us. I mean, £47 a night it was. Mm-hmm. But of course, £47 a night translated into about 700 rupees, about a month's living for a lot of people with families. And going around the back of the Taj, I was quite horrified to see how filthy it was, and the streets, and babies sleeping on the ground, and all this sort of thing. And another thing that really struck me, when we got to our hotel, and I looked out of the window the next day, and there was this little puppy dog, little pedigree puppy dog, beautiful little puppy dog it was, and it was following somebody along the road. And then it stopped, and they went on, and then I realised that it was looking for its owner. It was lost, and it kept looking at people and going up to people, and sometimes they kick it out of the way, and I thought, poor little thing. And that evening when we came back, I saw the little puppy dog again. It was covered in excrement, and it was all filthy and all dirty and bedraggled, and I put my hand out to it and it shied away. It had been badly treated in that day. And I thought, well, what can I do for the dog? Nothing. Can't take it to the police station, they won't want to know. No dog rescue places. If the baby is sleeping on the floor out the back of the Taj Hotel, what chance has a puppy got? So I realised, there were a lot of difficulties at that time in India.
So it was quite a culture shock for you.
It was, and I remember when we came into, I can't remember if it was Bangalore or Bombay. It must have been Bombay. That was the first airport we came into. The airport was like a big shed. Going through customs was very, very slow because I think the guy was waiting to be given a tip from each person that went by, and he literally took about 5 minutes for everybody to go through. So it was a great long queue. It was taking ages to get through, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to learn patience here. I can see that's one of the lessons. And then driving through into the city, the outer skirts were just shacks. They were just huts thrown together with bits of plastic or palm leaves or anything that people could get hold of and build shelters all one after the other. And then, of course, when we got into the centre of the town, it was lovely buildings. But they obviously hadn't had a lick of paint since 1947 when they got independence. Yet they were buildings from the Raj. It's not like that now, of course. So everything's being restored, but it was then.
Quite a shock then. What about Ooty itself? Did you manage to get to Ooty all right?
Yeah, we got the train. We stayed 3 days in Bombay as it was. Did some sightseeing, went out to Elephantine Island and saw the Shiva statues that had been fired on by the Portuguese. The only one that wasn't broken was the triple-headed Shiva because of the Trinity. They thought it might be something to do with the Trinity, so they kept that intact. But in the 16 something, the Portuguese had fired their cannons on those statues, ancient statues. Yeah, it was really nice. We didn't like Bombay. It was dirty and big, and I found the people a bit stupid sometimes. You know, we would ask a taxi driver to go and see the sights. He said, "Would you want to go and see Bollywood?" Yeah, we'd go and see Bollywood. So he spent a couple of hours driving us through traffic, heavy traffic, and then take us round a walled site. So all we saw was an outside of a wall. I said, "Well, where's Bollywood?" It's inside. I said, "Well, let's go inside then." "Oh no, you're not allowed inside." So you couldn't go in, you couldn't go and see anything. All you saw was I said, "Well, you spent 2 hours bringing us to a wall."
Yeah.
So,
so that's India for you, isn't it? That's India. So that's what you discovered in India. How about when your first encounter with Sai Baba then?
We went up to Ooty. We got up to Ooty. It was about I think it was a 6-hour drive through the beautiful national parks, and so that was quite exciting. And there was the incident with the elephant, where we saw an elephant eating a bush. And we stopped the taxi to look at it. And Bob went herring off with my daughter, who was with us, Debbie. And the taxi driver said to me, if they get near that elephant, it will kill them. This wild elephant eating a bush. So I had to go herring after them as fast as I could, shouting. Fortunately, they eventually heard me, and they stopped. And we went back. I said, "It's going to kill you, it'll kill you. It's a wild elephant." But we got to Ooty, and it was when we got to Ooty, I felt suddenly very depressed. All of the energy had keyed me up and brought me to there, because I was then on the ashram and about to see Sai Baba. You know, my spirits went whoosh, and I thought, what am I doing here? I brought my family, my husband and my daughter, up a mountain in India, disease-ridden country, where we couldn't get anything to eat or drink. We didn't, unless they had bottled water, which they hadn't, we didn't dare drink it. And what have I done? I must be crazy coming here. Anyway, we had to sit down in lines, the women and the men. There were only a couple of hundred people there. So it was only first line and second line.
Blimey, yeah.
And
so what was the place itself like?
It was a small enclosed. It was an ashram. It was a small enclosed area where they only had one toilet, which was allocated for women, and they must have had a building for Sai Baba, and maybe some sort of little temple.
Pretty basic then.
It was extremely basic. So we sat down there on the ground, and then I saw a lady come in through the gates, and she was obviously a Westerner. She was a tall white woman. And she came in and she was sitting about 20 places from me. But then people seemed to get up and move up, which was a bit bizarre really, why they should move. There was no real reason. But she ended up sitting next to me. And after a few minutes, we spoke, said hello, you know, where are you from? And it turned out that she had actually been, for 16 years, had been to the philosophy school where we went.
Okay.
So no one other than somebody from the philosophy school could have reassured me that this is the right place. Don't worry, you've come to the right place.
Right, yeah.
Because she knew my best friend at the philosophy school. And not only that, her husband was a tutor in the philosophy school in Southampton. And the night before we'd left for India, a lady from Southampton had visited us, who was the mother of my latest tenant.
Gosh.
So friends were coming around you, as it were, to help you on the
People.
way, to reassure
Yeah,
you.
everybody I seemed to meet connected to going to India, I could find a connection with them. Like that man who was a driving instructor. He knew Bob, he worked at the same company as Bob.
Bizarre, isn't it?
He was
So,
my training manager at the time.
Gosh.
and everybody that I met on the way to Sai Baba, I could connect back with somebody else. I knew that they weren't all mad. So I was quite reassured then. And then, of course, after about 20 minutes, Sai Baba himself appeared. He came out, small form. Wow, what was coming through it, what was emanating through that form was a great power, great love. And you've only got to see Sai Baba to then be happy. So it was just, wow, I never knew Jesus was like that. With that power, that
So this
beauty,
was just the
absolute
feeling you got
beauty.
looking at him. What was?
yeah, it was just unbelievable. I mean, I understood for the first time in my life what the word awe means, to be in awe of somebody.
So you wouldn't have
Yeah.
considered yourself a devotee at that time, or anything like that, would you? This
Christian.
was,
No, I was a Christian.
an individual Christian person
Yeah.
that's gone to India
Yeah.
into the most unusual, unexpected environment, and you saw this magnificent figure.
Yeah,
So, did you get to speak to him, or
but not at
anything?
that time. But he came and stood next to me a few times. But I was extremely arrogant then. Probably not quite as that.
Not
much
quite as bad
now.
as now.
Not. But I mean, that's what I kept seeing. It was 3 years before Swami would speak to me.
Yeah.
He would come and stand next to me and speak to the person next to me,
Uh-huh.
you know, as if to say, you know, I'm here, but I'm not going to speak to you.
Yeah. That must have been quite frustrating. How did you feel about that?
Well, I would just, in my mind, I would just counteract it and say, well, I'm not staying here anyway, I'm going tomorrow. I don't want to come to your party, because I'm not...
So you'd already established a dialogue with him in a way.
Oh, I established dialogue straight away. It wasn't a particularly...
So a point must have come at some point. I know you went to India multiple times.
Yes.
When you had a first interview with him.
Yes, it was... the second time I went was... I didn't intend to go again. But 18 months later, it was Swami's 60th birthday, and Victor Kanu, one of the people that I'd met on my journey, was taking he was certainly going and taking a group for the 60th birthday. And I thought, and there were rumours that it would be more difficult to see Swami after his 60th birthday. And I thought, no, I've got to go again, I must go one more time. So I joined Victor's group and went with him for the 60th birthday. And saw Swami speaking. There was nobody had interviews on the 60th birthday. Well, not many people, because it was too busy. And then so I came home. Then the following year, I think Victor took another group. I mean, he'd take about 200 at a time.
Oh right.
It
Mainly
was
Westerners, I suppose. This would be
Indians.
Indians. Okay.
Indians in mostly and Westerners. A few white people. But mainly, the majority of them are Indian devotees in the UK. So we went out, and I had an interview on that third trip with because we had 200 in the group. Swami said he'd see 20 people, and Genevieve very kindly, Victor's wife, very kindly put me at the top of the list of when she wrote down 20 people to take into the interview room. And so I was, I saw him and I watched. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to see how things went. And Genevieve and Victor spoke with him. And then after that, I virtually had an interview with my group every year.
Wow.
Except for 1 year.
So of those interviews, what were the most remarkable things that was ever said to you or happened to you?
Well, Swami always used to speak to me. Because I was quite loath to speak, first of all. He'd say, for example, he said, all right, to the group, he said, tell me your problems. And I had a big problem, because I had a very disabled granddaughter, physically and mentally disabled. and I wanted to mention it to him. But I thought, oh, I'll wait in case somebody else got more important.
Oh, that's quite an important question, actually.
So I waited, and he said again, tell me your problems. And he said it a third time, and he looked at me, and so I spoke to him about it. But what used to happen in the interviews, it was really nice, because somebody would ask a question. Swami, I used to go and sit at the side of his chair, not in the front. You know, people would come in first and they'd sit in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd sit at the side of him, like here.
Yeah.
Because then he wouldn't move me. Because if you sit in front of him and he wants to call somebody over to speak to them, you have to move out of the way.
Okay. Yeah.
But if I sit round the side of him,
That was clever.
he won't move me. Sorry, what was I saying?
Well, you were going to tell us about your granddaughters. You were concerned
Oh
about.
yes, Swami used to speak to me because if somebody asked a question to Swami, he would say as if he hadn't heard or didn't understand, which was ridiculous. So I would repeat the question to Swami, and then Swami would give the answer back by talking to me, talking and looking to me. So he did that all the time. He would always talk to me.
Yeah.
So it was really nice for me. But I did that, I suppose, because I worked a lot as a PA secretary in the city.
Okay.
So I was used to being useful to my boss. So that was the sort of relationship we had. He was the boss and I was the personal assistant.
PA.
and that's also what happened during those 6 years when I worked on the Christmas children's plays and things. He would come to me all the time and ask me for information. And
So did he ever say anything to you that was really personally important? Or
well, one nice thing that happened in the interview, it wasn't as much saying, it was I had a desperate urge to touch him. I wanted to touch him. But you can't touch him. You can't just willy-nilly go and touch Swami. So I very slowly started to put my hand up in the air like this. And they were all looking at me. My group was looking at me thinking, what on earth is she doing?
Yeah.
And I put my hand down. And Swami was talking and gesticulating, talking like this. And I put my hand on his chair. And he immediately brought his hand down on top of my hand. Immediately.
Gorgeous.
And then he started playing with my nails, with his nails. And it was sending tingles all up and down my
Cool.
body. So that was a very, very nice experience.
So apart from that initial seeing that here's a man that's really holy and very special, what really convinced you that he was an extraordinary person beyond what?
Well, he just was.
Yeah.
I mean, he did miracles. I was used to seeing
So
him.
what did you see on the miracles?
Well, for example, he manifested this out of his hand here, came right out of the middle
So
of
how?
his hand.
I mean, a skeptic will say, "Oh, it's conjuring."
What
What did you describe exactly?
I was as close to him as I am to you, if not closer.
And what did you see? You saw the middle of the hand, did you say?
Yeah, his hand was open.
Yeah.
Open, like this, and it came out of his hand.
Out of his hand itself.
Out of his hand.
And you were... if I'm this close, I could see that would be absolutely no trickery you could have.
No,
with
there's no
that.
trickery.
No.
And I've seen him do it many, many, many times.
And would it always manifest in a similar
would,
way?
Wave his hand like this.
Yeah, with his
and
hand up.
Yeah, with his hand up.
So it could, and he had short sleeves on too, doesn't he?
No, and they're not. They're comfortable like this, but they're open.
Yeah.
Quite open. And it came out of the centre of his palm.
Yeah. Incredible.
And he also manifested this at another time.
Yeah.
But he does it for a purpose. This has got a bit ragged, I'm afraid. A bit knocked about. But he would do it, for example, I started to... As soon as I came back from India the first time, I started to work for Victor Kanu, who was a school teacher. He used to be the High Commissioner for Sierra Leone and Ghana. So he had a connection with the company I worked for because I was working for an international mining company. And then when there was a coup in Sierra Leone, or Ghana, one or the other, he wasn't allowed to go back to the country, so he stayed in London and became a school teacher. Because he was an Oxford man, so he was qualified.
Yeah.
And I started working for him because the year and the month that we went to India, Sai Baba started the Education in Human Values program, which is the teaching of 5 values: love, prema, truth, satya, shanti, peace, dharma, right conduct, and ahimsa, non-violence. That these values need to be taught to children in school. So you teach them through relative values. So if with love you're teaching them about being kind, being caring, sharing and friendly and welcoming and these sort of things. And with peace it's to do with inner tranquility and those values, and right conduct, which everybody knows about, acting according to your conscience. And non-violence was the 5th one, and that was the new one really. I think originally they'd only taught 4, because non-violence comes automatically if you practice the other 4. But I think in the West we're so thick, and in this Kali Yuga, that they have to specify non-violence. So he did, and I started to help Victor with his conferences and in clerical ways, reporting and things. I remember once we went to a conference in Accra in Ghana to introduce the values there. And because I did that, I got on the committees and I got very, very interested, and I started to write books of lesson plans. And when I took my first books of lesson plans to Sai Baba, he approved them. He didn't see me immediately. I sat there with this great thick book, because I had actually, it became the foundation of the first 3 books that I wrote. And I had it in my chair because we were allowed to take books in at that time. And I was waiting for several days before he saw me. And this book was getting a bit battered. Beautifully handmade book it was. And I thought, well look, maybe it's no good. I'm not a school teacher, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe this work's no good that I've done, and maybe Swami doesn't want it. And I thought, well Swami, if you don't want it, I'll burn it. If you don't...
Were you feeling emotional at that point about that? Was that kind of an emotional reaction?
I was a bit angry.
Yeah, okay. So how did he respond to this?
Well, after a couple of days he gave me an interview.
And did he tell you off ever? Or?
No. Well, he has told me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly has. But at that time he didn't. He took the book on his lap and he looked through it, and he said to me, will you promote this programme in the UK? And I said, that is my intention, Swami. I was quite, and I thought I was a bit abrupt really. Maybe I shouldn't speak to an avatar like that.
Yeah.
But then maybe I should.
So you got a pretty good rapport with Swami, really, didn't you?
Oh, definitely.
And you were part of this education in human values.
And it was then that when I said to him, that is my intention, I thought, but it's going to be difficult, I'll need your help. And before that sentence was even half formed in my mind, he had gone like this, and this necklace had come out of it.
Yeah.
And he put it over my head.
Yeah.
And he said, never take it off. So I have to continue doing the
wearing that all the... Okay, right.
Yeah, and I wear
so that's your link now with him.
Yes.
So, obviously, a lot of people were really shocked when Sai Baba died, because he died... A lot of people thought he died earlier than he should have done, and I know there's this thing about...
Sudden.
Sorry?
We weren't expecting it.
What was your reaction?
I was in floods of tears. Absolutely devastated. And my husband was working overseas, and I was the other lady was still in the house, but she wasn't very friendly towards me by that time, and she didn't even tell me it happened. Another friend of mine phoned me up in the evening and told me, and I was devastated. I just went into my sitting room and was crying and crying. I was, it meant that I wouldn't see him in the body again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lose touch with him by any means. But I was so happy when I saw him, as were most people. And if you looked into his eyes, you've got such an amazing experience. I remember once when we were backstage, and I was on my own backstage, because you don't get an opportunity to be on your own with Swami. He's very strict about it. But as I was backstage and the children were in the front of the stage practicing, and he came out of his room of his apartment, the doors of which opened onto the backstage, he came over to me. I wanted to ask him something. I wanted to ask him, I've been told to ask him, if he would give Padnamaskar to the Savadels who worked in the kitchens.
That's
Because there
touching
were
people's feet, Padnamaskar.
touching his feet, yeah. Because he was giving it to the other Savadels and giving them saris and Padnamaskar. And that morning, the play committee ladies, the important ladies, had been discussing, I think it must have been the 24th, because that's when we did the play. And they had been discussing where they would sit on the back of the stage after the play, so that when Swami came out, they would be able to do Padnamaskar. So we got them organised in a nice place so they'd be able to touch his feet. Anyway, I'd never done Padnamaskar because it's not my tradition, and I was always...
Yeah, it's a pretty big call for a Westerner, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wore a sari because I was expected to. But I hadn't done that, and if I didn't know the meaning of it, there was no point really. Anyway, he came over to me and I said, because I put my hands up to indicate I wanted to speak to him, or I would anyway, because I'd get a real bad look if I didn't. And he came over to me and I said, Swami, will you give Padnamaskar to the Savadels working in the Western canteens, kitchens? And he looked at me and he said, yes, do. And I said, no, not me, Swami. The Savadels in the Western canteen. Because I was often thinking Swami didn't understand me.
Yeah.
He said the wrong thing. So he said, you do. So I said, all right, Swami. And I got on my knees and I wasn't quite sure what I should do. So I touched my eyes and touched his feet and touched my eyes. And he zapped me with a huge load of energy. Absolute bliss. I've never felt such ecstatic happiness in my life. And I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to get off the floor. I thought, oh, I'll remain forever at his feet on the floor. It was absolutely an ecstatic feeling of amazing. Anyway, then he went and the day went on, and that afternoon he was going to give Padnamaskar to the whole group out in the darshan area. And I sat and I touched his feet as usual as he went by. And then I thought, oh, does he remember that we did it this morning? And he'd gone by one or two people by then, and he turned round at me and looked at me and he said, kitchen later. Yeah.
I can almost see him in your face when you say that.
Yeah, I thought I had some lovely
Fantastic
experiences.
Yeah. Fantastic. So
yes, I did cry.
I bet. Yeah.
I'd love to see that form, that body.
Yeah.
Because of the power that came through it and the energies and.
So how does it affect your life now?
How does it affect my life? Well, I try to practice the 5 values because he said to me that these are a human being. These values are a human being. They are no values, no human, only animal. So you have to manifest the, and that's why we need to teach children in schools.
So you're still actively teaching values, and I believe you said something.
Not too much at the moment, but we have started doing workshops in the Russian-speaking countries last year before we were with this lockdown. We haven't been able to go back. We would have done some more if we hadn't had this situation. We've done several workshops in Latvia, and the books have been translated into Latvian. I mean, the book's been translated quite a lot. They've been translated years and years ago. The first 2 were translated into Arabic. Yeah.
So there's still a lot of work going on.
And there's a huge lot of work to do.
Obviously, Swami's gone into whatever the next realm is. What's your feelings about the future? I mean, he said he would be reborn again as Premasai.
Yes.
Have you had any thoughts about that, or feelings
Well, he's
about
supposed
that?
to have been born already, because Kasturi, who was one of his really greatest devotees, died quite a few years ago, and then he's said to have been reborn in a village somewhere near Madras, and that he would be the mother of Premasai.
Okay, that was a feeling I had. I remember saying that on one of my videos, that I felt he'd already come back. So that's what.
Yeah, he should be a little boy now.
Okay.
So I hope I live long enough to see
See
Premasai
him
when
again.
he is a teenager and declares himself.
Yeah. Yeah, but he doesn't know who he is yet, I presume. Or he does know, but
I've no idea.
We don't know. So you've had no thoughts about, no dreams, feelings, thoughts.
I'm sure when I'm meant to go to see Premasai, I will have a dream or a feeling that I have to go.
Yeah. I always feel that if you're called by Sai Baba, you're called.
There's no mistaking it.
There's no mistaking it. It's called
No.
with him. You can't not go.
That's right.
To when you've been called. I mean, that was how it was when we came with you to India. I mean, we felt we were just called. You know. Did you feel the same, Bob? Were you? I mean, you also had a ring materialise, didn't you?
I often act as Carol's chauffeur. So it was Carol who wanted to go to India, I seem to remember. It was her motivation, albeit I was always interested in Hindu, Vedic philosophy, Indian culture, Indian music. And I guess I was quite looking forward to going to India. But as I mentioned to you earlier, I absolutely loathed and detested India. When I was there, the squalor, the filth. But it was very helpful because I did have a dreadfully romantic idea of what India was. You know, Joss
You've
Sticks
seen the movies.
Joss Sticks and sitar players on every street corner. And of course the reality was very different. But the big thing, well, there are two things for me. When I first saw Sai Baba, it was clear that he wasn't a human being, because his being seemed to glow like a hologram. Or if you're looking at an orange lampshade with light coming through it, it seemed that his garment was glowing. His whole being was glowing. And I know that he looked at me very briefly, and it was like looking into a furnace. Just for a fraction of a second, his two eye sockets, I could see inside. It was brilliant white like a furnace. There was no light coming out, but it was like if you look on a steam engine or something, you've got the boiler, and you look in, it's brilliant. But it was brilliant white light. That was the first time I saw him. And the other thing that occurred was that I'd always been utterly dismissive of Christianity. I'd viewed it as a completely mechanistic, dry set of rules, devoid of any spiritual insight or wisdom at all. And I literally refused to open the Bible. Viewed it as having no merit whatsoever. And yet when I went to India the first time, all of a sudden I wanted to find out about Christ. And I remember the first book I read was a book called Christ by Malcolm Muggeridge.
I remember him.
And I started reading some more. And when I came back to the UK, I went to church every Sunday for a year. It was just bizarre.
Really?
I went from total aversion and dismissal of Christianity to going every
You're embracing it.
every week. And I know when I came back to the West, I'd always been rather dismissive of Western culture, art, music, architecture and so on, and viewed it as being inferior to the Indian classical music tradition and everything else. And when I came back to the UK, it was as if I discovered a treasure house. The glories of British architecture, the art in the National Gallery, the British Museum, the glories of Renaissance and Baroque music. It was as if this had been a completely closed book. And
So he awakened the complete opposite.
He
in you,
did.
didn't
It
he?
was bizarre,
Yeah.
and it was as if, well, it was. I had a very romanticised dream of India, and when I came back, although I discovered the treasure house of Western civilization and the Christian tradition, it didn't in any way diminish the stature of the Indian philosophical tradition.
Mhm.
But I viewed them, rather than one being superior to the other, they were both
Complete change in
they
your
were both excellent. So that was the biggest change in a way, that the total inversion from complete disdain towards Christianity to believing that it was utterly authentic.
I noticed also you've got a Sai Baba ring there as well on you.
Yes.
Was that materialised again?
Yes, he. I think it was the last. Carol had numerous interviews, and I've just had two. And because Swami called her for an interview, I joined her as her husband,
As the chauffeur.
as the show, that's right, as the accompaniment, as the company. And I think the first interview, I simply listened while Swami answered various of Carol's questions. And I think in the very last interview we had, I saw Swami materialised Carol's
Yes.
peacock brooch,
With the brooch.
which was just totally unexpected and wonderful. Because again, I saw it sort of pop, chain and all out of the.
Yeah,
bottom
these are
of his
gold
head.
as well, aren't they? All
Yeah,
this,
that's
is,
right.
all this is
They
precious.
were gold, they were diamonds, so it was full of diamonds, but unfortunately I asked a jeweller to fill in a few of the diamonds that had fallen out in India, and although he was recommended to me, he said he'd given it to various people to see if they could match the diamonds, and none of them could, but they'd taken out the diamonds, so there's nearly hardly
So a lot
any
are missing now,
diamonds
but they were
left.
actually
They'd
were
taken them.
diamonds.
They were all
You
full-
know
that was-
them. The
that was
jeweller
completely
was
full
able
of-
to tell you that was all
No,
diamonds.
rubies
All-
and sapphires.
These
Yeah,
are all diamonds.
diamonds
I
and
think these
sapphire.
are probably garnets.
Yeah.
And the eye was a ruby.
Yeah. So these are very valuable pieces that he's materialising,
Oh,
even
yeah.
in material terms. I mean,
Well,
impossible
why not?
to have value in
He
terms
can,
of
he can
spiritual
materialise something expensive
Exactly.
as easy as
Yeah.
something cheap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't make any difference, does it?
Yeah.
He just materialises it.
But I know that
He
the
thinks
problem
it
is the
into
sceptical
existence.
person's going to say, "Oh, they're all trinkets that the magician produces."
No, this would have been
but
worth
these are
thousands
worth
of pounds.
thousands of pounds, and
Yeah.
you know that from the jewellers because they've had a go.
Yeah, they weigh-
And what
they
about
weigh the
your,
diamonds.
your ring. How did that come, Bob?
Well, immediately after the manifestation of the brooch, he waved his hand again and out popped.
So how close were you? Were you close enough, like Carol was, to see it
Yeah,
first?
we were sat, he was in his chair and we both sat at his feet.
So you were very
the
close
three
to
of us
him. You were
together.
a foot between you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Probably, I seem to remember my hands were on his knees. Because I think I was touching him at the time.
Yeah.
And I was
Very
touching
close.
his feet.
Yeah.
And, as I said to you earlier, he manifested it and then
Yeah.
put it on my finger and said, "Look, perfect fit."
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost if you're not surprised he got it right first time. But it just seemed a really weird thing.
Almost a bit of
So-
humour
It's just
almost
the
there.
humour,
It sounds
yeah.
like.
Then I think he turned to Carol and said, "Very costly," but I might be
But-
getting involved with another story.
That was probably something else, but he might have done. But he also, I said to him, "Green for peace, Swami," and he said yes. So the green rings are for peace. They're green diamonds.
Green diamonds.
Rare.
Yes.
And the
Very rare.
gold is 24 carat. It's very,
Very
soft.
soft.
Mhm.
Very, very easy
Yeah,
to
pure
deform.
gold, 24 carats.
Mm.
It's very soft and
Yeah.
easy to deform.
Wow.
And it's very strange actually because I'm not used to, wasn't used to wearing a ring on this hand.
Mhm.
And in the first couple of weeks that I had it, I kept knocking it, and the gold began to peel away from the stone.
Mhm.
And I thought, at this rate, if it keeps on like this, the stone's going to fall out because all this gold keeping it in place is wearing away. And then that was the first couple of weeks. Then in the couple, and it was very soft, almost like a newborn baby being very soft. The gold was very soft as well. And then a couple of weeks after that, the gold grew back.
Yeah.
So
There's been remarkable things like this.
it's
for
very
me.
strange that
Miracles.
the gold. So now it looks pretty
Brand
much as
new.
it was when it was first manifested, and all the gold has grown back around the diamond.
Brand new. I mean, I've heard stories of people's had Sai Baba's face on a ring, and then it started looking as a profile, a face straight on, and then gradually over the years it's turned to look sideways, and vice versa, isn't there? You hear those stories.
I remember once in an interview, he manifested a ring, and he got it, passed it all around the group, which he usually did, and then he blew on it, I think, and it changed into something else.
Mm-hmm.
He showed everyone, and he said, very easy for Swami to manifest his ring, but to change the heart of a Westerner, very difficult.
So you were there when you. I remember reading this somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So you were there when that happened.
Yes.
Fascinating. And then of course we all we joined you to go to Puttaparthi with you, didn't we, Jane? So for us that was quite just as much a shock. But we were sort of. You went there in '84, so we went there in about
87.
Was it late? No, it wasn't 87.
Our group was 97.
97.
Yeah, 97.
So we were.
October.
Yeah, so you'd already had quite a lot of experience of India then, and taking groups, and it was quite fun, wasn't it?
We met 6 weeks before we went.
Yes,
That's
we all
right.
came up to see you in Pinner, I think it was, wasn't it? And
Because Carol had a lot of energy, didn't she? And very good at organising people. And
I used to be, until fairly recently, I was very energetic, but
You're
because
very
I hurt my shoulder now, I seem to
yeah,
keep
you were
getting
full
a
of
lot
energy.
a
Definitely.
lot of tiredness. But my friend, who's a Hindu pujari, the last few days he's been sending energy to me, so I've been a bit better. And it was quite funny how it happened. I was speaking to him a few days ago, and he said, I said, I'm lacking in energy. He said, go and get the herbal cigar therapy from a Chinese medicine place.
sounds dodgy.
So he said, he said to himself, he said, I've had it and it really energises you. So I said, well, I don't know if there is one in Eastbourne, but I'll check it out. He said, I said, what exactly is it? It's not acupuncture. They use a herbal cigar, and they put it near the points, so the points get hot. But they tell you, is it too hot? Is it, they won't burn you. So he was visualising this as he was telling it to me, and then that day I had a lot of energy.
Gosh.
So I rang him in the evening. I sent him a message in the evening, and he rang me back. I said, did you send me energy? Because I had a lot of energy. And he said, well, I did visualise the points and when I was explaining about the herbal cigar therapy to you. So I said, well, it's worked telepathically. It has worked, and I got the energy. I received the energy from it. So he's been doing that for me. But last night I told you, after we'd seen your film, we had a very, very good night's sleep. But the night before that, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had to get up. I wasn't going to be able to go back to sleep. So I rang him up. I said, have you been sending me energy? He said, yes. I've been sending it to you in the morning and then in the evening before I go to sleep. I said, well, can we cut out the evening one? Because I got up at 3 o'clock.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about before I forget to, I believe you consulted the Nadis as well.
Yes, I
think
did.
you both.
Yes.
Was there any mention of Sai Baba in the Nadis?
Yes.
Is there anything you can
They knew we
reveal?
were devotees.
They said it in the. So the Nadis was sort of accepting that Sai Baba was
Absolutely.
a special person.
Yeah, an avatar.
How did it describe him? Do you know? Did you remember? I mean, I don't know if you recorded it.
Do you remember? Because you were supposed to take the notes for me.
But it was said you were on the way to see Sai Baba, or it was.
No, we came on the way back from seeing Sai Baba.
Okay, yeah.
Because we had to book 2 months in advance.
Okay.
And everything fell into place. And a friend of mine, quite a spiritual girl, and runs a yoga centre in Wales, she rang me up. We were going with her to India. And she rang me up and said, Carol, I really feel I want to go to the Nadi person in Bangalore.
Okay, the Bangalore one, yeah.
In Champret, Bangalore. And she said, I really feel that you and Bob should get your Nadis read as well. And I hadn't thought about it, I hadn't considered that. But I said, okay. And then she rang me back again. She said, oh, we can't go. We have to give 2 months' notice, and we're leaving in 6 weeks. So I said, yeah, but we can go on the way back, because we'll be there for 2 or 3 weeks, and we can go, but make a booking for on the way back, which is what we did. And she said, you need your place and time of birth. Well, I didn't know my exact time, but I had a horoscope done some years before, and so I knew it was written on that as near as I could. But I didn't know where it was. I had no idea where this horoscope was. I hadn't seen it for years. So
they didn't take your thumbprint?
No, they didn't take my thumbprint. But I went upstairs to our little library room, small bedroom, which was the library. And there on the shelf, in front of the books, pile of papers, top paper was the horoscope.
Oh, marvellous.
So I had the details, and everything went like that. Everything was completely smooth for booking our trip to the Nadi, and on the way back we called in and saw the
And
Nadi.
they searched for your
three
leaf.
of us.
They searched for your leaf first.
Yes.
So you had to go through lots of different leaves before they found your leaf.
he had it because we'd given him the place, longitude and latitude.
Okay. They can sometimes find it just for your date of birth. Yeah, sometimes the
Yeah,
ones I had.
date of birth, and
Yeah.
the time as near as I could, because I only knew within about half an hour, and of course things change in half an hour.
Yeah.
But he got all of my life correct. You know, he started off saying you were the middle daughter of a 3-daughter family.
Did he name your parents?
No, he didn't give any names.
Okay, it
And
sounds
no
like
names at all.
Okay, it sounds okay. Yeah.
But he did get all of my life right. But the latter part of my life has changed a bit. I mean, he said you won't have any more operations,
Yeah.
and I have had bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
I don't think I...
But it did
I
make.
think, was it before I had my hips done? It would have been before I had my
Yeah.
hips done. So I did have both of my hips.
And he read this from the leaves.
Oh yeah,
Read from
yeah.
leaves,
Those
not from
rulers,
horoscope.
those
Yeah.
rulers, like
Yeah.
on your film.
Yeah, same like
Those-
that. Yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's fascinating.
And I
That's
think it was
interesting.
Sanskrit.
I'm
not
always interested to
Tamil.
ask someone about Sai Baba and particularly the Nadis, because sometimes there's hints in there about his return, you know, and that would be interesting if anything was in there. But I just, from
Well, I
the
mean,
sounds-
obviously he didn't tell me everything.
No.
He told me 5 past lives.
Were you Indian past life?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
first
thought you
life
were.
he told me I was an Indian dancer.
Yeah.
And
Classic
Sai Baba
dancer?
once came out onto the stage with the children, said to the children, pointed at me and said, she loves dancing. And I said, no, I don't dance, because Bob never danced, you see, at that time. So I never danced.
Yeah.
So I hadn't danced for 30 years. And this little girl said to me, you must love dancing, because Swami said.
And there it is in your Nadi.
And there
So
it was in my
he was
Nadi.
confirming your Nadi too.
Yes, he was.
Well, thanks, Carol. I think we better conclude it there because that's
It was
quite
interesting. I love listening to all this.
Very, very fascinating, and I expect people will enjoy that on the channel. Yeah.
And I'm also writing my autobiography.
Well,
yeah.
that's the important thing because you haven't gotten a title for it yet, have you?
Well, a friend of mine said I should call it Bangaroo, which means golden girl.
Okay.
Sounds more like kangaroo, doesn't it?
Bangaroo. Yeah,
Ah.
it's because Swami once called me Bangaroo.
Oh.
Okay.
One of the last times I was close to him, really.
But whatever you decide to call it, we will put it on this channel so that people can
Yeah.
find out about the book, and we'll do another interview about you later on, perhaps, just once the book's out there.
Yes,
so people
it's not
can.
finished yet.
But look out for it on. Will it be on Amazon?
I don't know. I don't know
Probably
anything
it'll
yet.
definitely be on Amazon, I'm sure it will. And I suggest you also put it on Audible.
Right.
So we're going to push her to do it
Yeah.
on Audible as
I'll
well.
be happy to do it.
And then the people that watch the channel here can have a look, and we'll put the details in the description below to Carol's website, so
I
you
was
can go and
asked
find
to
out.
write it by the bookshop in Puttaparthi,
Uh-huh.
because I deal a lot with the bookshop, and the man in charge there, not Mr. Rajan, the very top man, because he's very elderly now, but the one who does all the work under him. He asked me to write it because they publish, or they sell our education in human values books there, because I've written 9 books.
On there. So would there be a website for that one?
We've got a website, busy.org.uk.
Okay, well I'll put that again in the description below if anybody wants to buy a copy of that.
But he asked me to write that book, this autobiography book, because he said in 30 years' time there won't be anybody living who's had
Absolutely. These personal
so much
experiences
personal
are so
experiences
important.
with Swami.
Yeah.
Like with Jesus.
Yes.
You know, we haven't
Yeah.
got very much
But-
information
Well,
about him.
most of it has been cut out, hasn't it? But anyway, okay, thank you, Carol, and we'll say bye to everybody. Well, thanks for joining us on the YouTube channel again, and don't forget to follow this channel. Click the little bell at the bottom of the page there, and you'll get updates every time we put a new video like this up live. Bye for now.
My wife Jane and I do our public work for free. We raise money through the theatres to raise money for our Hamilton Parker Foundation. This is a not-for-profit company that is soon to be registered as a charity. Now, our work is going in to help with the objectives of this charity, but you can help us as well by becoming what we call a patron of this channel. Now, as a patron, you'll get, first of all sorts of really interesting benefits. You'll have a sort of behind the scenes look at what goes on with our work. You'll get videos before other people. You'll get new videos. You'll get all sorts of benefits that are explained in the patron website, and it has various tiers that you can subscribe to. So you can subscribe to just a little bit and get a few benefits, or you can subscribe a lot and get a lot of benefits. And what this means is that we can raise some money through this channel. Now, this money's not going to me and Jane to give us a fancy lifestyle. This money is going into our foundation that has some fantastic objectives. Now, the first thing we want to do with the foundation is, first of all, get a cyber centre together, a cyber temple, as it were, a place where we can introduce new people to you through this channel. So by supporting this channel and giving something to the as a patron, you will find that this channel will start to get better and better content with more and more interesting things going on. We'll be able to get the cameras, we'll be able to have the space, we'll be able to have the right setting where we can build the energy to do things such as mediumistic circles and so forth online. But also our work extends further than that, because we are hoping ultimately to build a spiritual centre, a psychic ashram, as it were, where people like you can come to visit and take part in an interactive way through this channel as well. But also we are doing a lot of what we call spiritual service. We are going out and giving a large part of the income we generate to people in India who are destitute. We've given to schools, we've fed children that are in need, we've helped mentally handicapped people, we've given cows to old people in India. Some of all this you'd have seen in my movie Mystic Journey to India on Amazon. But all of this is part of our mission, part of our remit to help the world. Because we're not only trying to find our divine nature, we're also trying to live what we learn and express it in ways that are really beneficial to the world. So if you follow this channel, but more importantly, if you become a patron of this channel, you can help us to take this whole mission onto a much higher level than any psychic work has ever been done before.